And we're back with a cutscene. I don't know where my character learned to do that, because that's not
Yeah.
something I do.
Yeah. I wish we could reproduce that.
Careful, the protections. They do not differentiate between friend and foe. Anything that smells of anima, clean or tainted, and the fireworks go off. That was the third attack in as many days. The Aten worshippers are getting more aggressive, and our defenses are under strain. We needed the help. Muchas gracias. This is all I have. The entire Council of Venice delegation. One field operative, Amparo Osorio, buenas, and a handful of armed personnel. Hardly enough manpower to deal with a situation like this. Something has gone terribly wrong here. Far beyond the earthquakes, locust swarms, and rain of fire. I believe something has been taken from this place. A dangerous artifact that may be behind the cruel wind that has brought these dark clouds upon us. I'm convinced that the Orochi are involved, somehow. As are the Phoenicians. Their loyalties can be bought. But there's someone else too. Someone with a lot of resources and friends in the highest places. Them? I do not know. But the council won't listen. No one listens. My reports vanish in red tape, and I don't receive the resources I need. It's as if someone is deliberately trying to slow me down. And so I dig on my own and attract the attention of the cultists. I fear the council may be compromised from the inside. I don't know who to trust, whether they want me to find the truth, or if they want me to bury it deep below the
Which is
sand.
why I'm entrusting it with you, random person.
All I know is that this is too important to bury. Too important to keep secret. Whatever it is that happened, it happened right here, in this town. Normal people were turned into mindless, murderous sheep, bent on darkness, death, and destruction. But like sheep, they only know how to follow. And if you follow the sheep, they might lead you to the shepherd. Yes?
Well, there's a bunch of different ways you
Okay.
can deal with someone trying to keep things secret. And a viable option, if you have very little other power, is to blow it as wide open as possible. And like she knows, if you are here, and if you're an anime user and you are in Egypt, you're probably with conspiracy. You're probably with the conspiracies and not the Phoenicians, because they would not be bothering to help her unless she paid them. So just, you know what? Here's the rundown. Go cause chaos. If I'm lucky, they'll send me more resources just to figure out what's going on. And hopefully, if I'm not, you'll still figure out what's going on. It's too important. Like she said, it's too important to bury. As long as it gets fixed, I don't think she cares all that much about who does it. So yeah. Anyway, hello guys, and welcome back to the LP.
Yeah, sorry I had to sell stuff, but this is the only vendor in this area. So I kind of had to come here, and there's a cutscene, so this has to be done on stream. I'm sorry. On video, sorry.
Eh, stat change,
At least you're experiencing the boredom of the crafting system firsthand.
and well, at least it's good to know that I don't know, what other MMOs does Funcom make, if any?
I think they make the Conan one.
Yeah, well, from what I hear, the crafting system there is just almost as boring as this one. It's just, you do more creative things, but just Minecraft with the tits hanging out.
Mm-hmm. I've been playing a lot of Minecraft recently.
It never really gets old, and until you run out of things to do, in which case you just find mods.
Yeah, I mostly play modded, because regular Minecraft is fucking boring.
I mean, look,
And most of the mods I play are like insanely complex. I'm playing
yeah,
Greg Tech.
I've seen Galactic Craft and Sky Factory, and those are fascinating. But I don't know, I like Minecraft. If you're not used to Minecraft, it's vanilla is plenty exciting. But I mean, at this point, relatively few people are.
Okay, let's actually do some stuff.
No, no, Roberto. Está bien. Lo siento. We are being extra cautious. Not only are we under constant attack, there have recently been attempts on my life. This village is divided, neighbor against neighbor. You have seen how it is. And also, people vanish, taken from their homes in the middle of the night, made into... I don't know what they are. Slaves of Aten? Mindless tools of the sun cult. Hijo de puta. And nobody dares to talk, even when the streets are getting emptier by the day. Soon, the cultists will own this town and everyone in it. Muy mal. So, I received word from the council, and they finally sent someone, an official, a single agent. Chingada. After what I tell them of this place. But I only have their word for it. That was a week ago, and the agent is nowhere to be found. Perhaps my colleague has been taken as well? I have no way of knowing. I fear I may be next.
You know what you don't see enough of? This is kind of a weird seg, but I was just thinking about it, and in fan fiction, what you do not see enough of is Cthulhu Mythos crossovers.
Yeah, that did kind of come out of nowhere. I think it's I don't know actually. That's a really good point.
Like I've seen like 3 Harry Potter Cthulhu Mythos crossovers, and you'd figure there'd be more.
I saw an Avatar, like the Last Airbender one, that was really good. And that's it. Like, I think that it's ultimately it's the Cthulhu mythos. It's really protagonist unfriendly. And even though like most of the people in the books actually survive, like it's about the setting rather than the people. And people write fan fiction about the people, if I had to guess.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. I think I've talked about this on stream before, but I had the idea for a Call of Cthulhu campaign that was, what if what Lovecraft wrote was, like Birth of a Nation style racist screeds?
Yeah, exactly.
And so it would be set during the Civil Rights era, and you'd be like deep ones trying to fight for equal rights.
That does actually sound that, yeah. God, I told you about the Litany of Earth series, right?
Ye believe so.
Because that is literally what that series is. It's set in like the 50s, but like there's a deep one protagonist, and she went through she was thrown in camps during World War II, like in the United States, and she's a member of an actual religion. The different parts of the mythos show up that are good or evil depending on circumstances. Like the Migo show up, and they're definitely not friendly, and they're definitely dangerous, but they're also not, that's because they're aliens who are after our stuff rather than because they actually hurt the people they work with. It's a very good series.
That reminds me of okay, so there's a website called Space Battles.
Yes.
A lot of creative writing on it.
Mm-hmm.
Someone is posting a Cthulhu Mythos Fallout crossover taking place pre-war. It's called Blind and Cacophonous the Atom Is, and I very much recommend it.
That actually sounds good. Yeah, Space Battles is sufficient velocity. Have a lot of really interesting ones.
Sufficient Velocity has so many quests, and a lot of them are fucking amazing. Especially one I'm reading now. There's two I'm reading now. They're both called plan quests, where you essentially run the economy of a nation.
Mhm.
One, you're running the Soviet economy.
That's
And the other, you're running the GDI economy from Command and Conquer. And they're both really good. There's just a bunch of cool quests there.
A quick diversion before we get back to quests. So like these are ghouls, right?
Yes, they are Lovecraft style. Well, not Lovecraft style. They're like a separate
style.
race.
Yeah.
They're people eaters. Yes, they're corpse eaters.
I did some research way back on them. Turns out originally they were just another form of desert spirit, something a lot closer to like the Jinn, who were nature spirits essentially. And they got reclaimed as they were associated with graveyards, but just like more in the way of a lot of spirits are associated with graveyards because they're spirits, and they got turned into these guys by Western fiction. Yeah, see, hearing about the Jinn, doing a lot of research, it's really weird. Like, did you know that Judaism also, or at least ancient forms of it, also believe in the existence of Jinn?
Yes, Solomon was known for his mastery over both demons and spirits, and Jinn were one of the kind of spirits.
That's not actually a Jewish thing. I mean, he was wise, but not that kind of wise. That's something that came later. That's medieval and like Christian and Muslim. But like when I say ancient Judaism believed in the Jinn, like you may have heard that there are records. Records is maybe a strong word, but there's like anecdotes that date back over 1,000 years of people talking to Jinn and converting them to Islam, and them being rather similar to just people. They had a similar concept where it's way hard to convert to Judaism, but you may have heard the name Asmodeus as like a demon name.
Asmodeus, yes.
He started as Asmodai, the leader of the selection of those people who had converted to Judaism. And that was a whole thing that ancient rabbis commented on. So yeah.
I remember reading a thread somewhere on Jewish mysticism, and it was really interesting because rabbis would debate shit that like science fiction people would debate. Like, 2,000 years ago, rabbis were debating, can an artificial being convert to Judaism? And it's just like, it's such a sci-fi concept.
Yeah.
And they're debating it in like, I don't know, 136 BC.
Yeah, you have a lot of now that we're nearing Hanukkah season, a lot of people think of Hanukkah as Jewish Christmas. It absolutely is not.
Of course not. No.
Yeah.
No, Hanukkah is. I heard it put it. This might be a little risque, but I'm gonna say it. It's the most Jewish holiday because it's the celebration of when you didn't have to spend extra money on something. It lasted more than we thought it would last.
Oh, actually, no. It's extremely different from that. Okay. Let's roll back. This is in the wake of Alexander the Great, who was famous for his religious...
Right.
Okay, let me tell you. Let me go through the whole story, because there's the parts of the story that most people don't know. And not that they're secret, it's just that it doesn't fit with the stereotypes. So Alexander the Great, famously tolerant. That's the reason why Alexander entered. There are certain names that Jews are only supposed to limit what we call kids. Like and most of them are sort of stuff like Nathan or whatever that you see in the Bible. There are a couple of others. One of them, like if you've heard the name Cyrus, he was a Persian king who did the same thing, and Alexander is another one. But okay, his heirs, after his empire broke up, the ones in control of modern Israel went in and tried to suppress them. And they tried to suppress the religion. And there was a massive and very bloody revolt that lasted for years and got a lot of people killed. And before they were able to force the Seleucid dynasty to convert it out. In the wake of, once they'd reclaimed the area of the temple, once they'd come back to the point where they could
I was on my way to meet Miss Osorio when the cultists grabbed me and brought me here. I don't know what happened next or why, but these beasts came out and killed everyone. I was sure I was going to be next.
Wonderful.
Your assistance is greatly appreciated. I will not forget you in my report to the council.
Yeah, the council never does anything useful this whole game.
Yeah, it's the UN, but even worse. Because at least the UN,
pretty much.
The UN
has peacekeepers.
Yeah, the UN can use peacekeepers. The UN serves diplomatic functions. The UN coordinates relief efforts. And Council of Venice does none of those things.
The only thing the Council of Venice does is keep the warfare from being open.
Yeah, and they slow things down to and make it more efficient for people to work out the differences. Yeah. Anyway,
back to Hanukkah.
Yeah, I was rambling about Hanukkah. So, in the wake of this massive civil war, because there were ethnic Jews who were on the side of the Seleucids. Wow.
It's like the plagues of Egypt.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm just
the water turns to blood.
I didn't see that one coming around before.
There's hail and thunder, locust swarms, flies and disease, and then darkness.
I just really.
And now, the very fires of heaven rain upon us. It's almost beautiful. But only from up here.
Yep.
There's no beauty to be found down there. Only death and war. This land has been cursed by history and the madness of men.
She's sort of a Debbie Downer.
Well, yeah. In fairness,
I mean, she is right, but
she's in an impossible position, and someone's probably trying to keep her. So, yeah.
She's making some odd fashion choices for a war zone too, because I would not wear hoop earrings to a war zone.
That's a very good point. Okay, anyway, after I got derailed another time. Where the fuck? So, after this massive apocalyptic civil war, they went in to start lighting the candles again. And they found that they had enough to conduct the appropriate ceremonies. They had enough lamp oil left for one day. And they wouldn't be able to get any more for at least a week. And they were ready to try and reinstitute the stuff that had been suppressed for years under the Greeks, but it was gone. There was nothing left. And they lit those candles just to keep them alive as long as possible, and they lasted for 8 days instead of the one they thought it would. And that is where the 8 days thing comes from. Like the there's a difference between a candelabra and Hanukkah, which is the
yeah, I'm aware.
Yeah, so
I mean, I learned all this from the Rugrats Holiday Special about Hanukkah, but
but yeah, it's a very violent story, especially, and the reason that it's never been a major holiday because the leader of that rebellion was a man named Judah Mac. And the thing about his dynasty, the Hasmoneans, was that they were fucking off. They were constantly killing each other, causing more civil wars, getting lots of other people killed. It was a mess. King Herod, who shows up in various other mythologies, was one of their last major members, and it wasn't great. So until very recently, Hanukkah was still a thing, but it wasn't a major holiday. It's just kind of revived as a way, as Christmas got commercialized, as a way to let Jewish kids have their own Christmas, so they didn't have to deal with Jewish kids getting salty that they didn't get presents, and that's why Hanukkah's
Okay.
a thing.
So what can you tell me about rabbinical versus temple Judaism?
There's a Okay, so if you go back and you know how people talk about the Ten Commandments?
Yes.
There's actually like 316, and the bulk of them, or at least a solid amount of them, are no longer observed because they rely on going to the temple in order to render sacrifices, in order to conduct various things, and like, the temple is gone. Like, there are bits and pieces of it left. There's the Wailing Wall. I've heard of it, but there's Have you ever heard the phrase Kohen Gadol?
No.
Or it's so it I'm there are there may one day, given the viewership, maybe you may see, if you've played Crusader Kings 2 and played as a Jewish leader, you may have run into them as like the head of the religion, as if you can reinstitute Israel. The Kohen Gadol is the high priest. It is, according to tradition, the direct male line, like oldest son of oldest son, descendant of Aaron, who is they are supposed to be able to actually listen to God, or at least hear enough of His will to offer judgments on theological matters. And they're gone. They're dead, as far as anybody knows. The Kohens are still around. According to both legend and actually there's good genetic evidence that they go back at least thousands of years. They're all male line descendants of Aaron. I am one of them. And theoretically...
Oh, you're Jewish?
Yes, I am. I don't know.
I didn't know you were Jewish.
Yeah,
I apologize if I offended you for... I apologize if I offended you with my earlier joke.
Yeah, I'm just going here and like... But yeah,
You probably hear that one a lot then. I apologize.
When I was in college once, male line, given gender stuff, that's kind of it's more or less accurate. I'm not going to go into that. Let me back up. What the fuck was it? Yeah, whatever. Kohen, right? Kohens are, like, theoretically, I'm entitled to, like, every time a baby is born, I'm entitled to, near me, I'm entitled to 2 silver coins. Also supposed to get the jawbone and a couple of the stomachs of every cow that's slaughtered. That has not been a thing that is active for thousands of years. But like there's a whole chunk of like, how do I put this? There are whole chunks of biblical commandments that cannot be observed, and that is the reason that you have the Talmud, which is it's second holiest book in most versions of Judaism. So there are a billion different versions. It's a bunch of old people arguing about the Bible, and it's exactly what you said, because they felt they had to work this out as precisely as possible, because now observing Judaism as it was supposed to be observed was now impossible. Just like directly, there were things that could not be squared, but they weren't exactly gonna abandon the religion that they followed thousands of years. So they sat down and started arguing about this, and they started they tried to consider every case in depth and go engage in a lot of debate. And that's ultimately a big part of why Jews have a reputation of producing a lot of lawyers and doctors, and a reputation for learning, because we had to do that in order to figure out what we're going to do next. We had to go through the Bible and the Torah, which is slightly different, but I won't go into that, and work through how exactly we properly approach all of this. Then we have to record it and consult the Talmud and be able to sort of like maybe like lawyer it kind of to figure out how it applies. So learning has been traditionally valued in Jewish culture and as has argument been, and that has been the thing.
Yeah, my dad works for an Israeli multinational. So he's traveled to Israel, he works with a bunch of Jews, and so he knows a bunch of Jew jokes
Yeah.
from Jews themselves.
Yeah.
And do you know what the Israelis' favorite form of humor is?
Okay, go ahead and tell me.
Holocaust jokes.
God, like, okay. If you want me to get serious and tell you something that a lot of people don't grasp, there's actually a big divide between Israeli Jews and American Jews, especially right now.
Oh, I know
Yeah,
that.
you're
I
familiar
pay
with.
attention to that.
Yeah, it's just I don't even want to go into it, but there's a huge.
It's very controversial. I don't want to talk about it.
Yeah, that's
Opinions on Israel just ruin all sorts of
everything.
shit.
Yeah,
I don't want to talk about it.
yeah. Let's not.
But I learned the best Holocaust joke I've ever heard from an Israeli friend of mine
I'd rather
that
not
I
hear
worked
it.
with. Okay, I won't tell you.
Thank you. But yeah, like I'm not surprised. I've known a few Israelis, and Israelis just they
They have a very dark sense of
yeah, they
humor.
don't give a fuck. They are yeah, let's not talk about this. Anyway, so anything else that my favorite story from the Talmud. Um, so like there's a lot of writing in the Talmud, but there's a lot of oral tradition around it too. The story goes that there was one rabbi named Rabbi Ezekiel who was at the construction of this thing took years, even decades. But for much of that time, Rabbi Ezekiel was considered the single wisest of the sages they had gathered.
Oh, I think I've heard this one. I love this one.
And I probably told it here before, but I'll tell it again anyway because I don't care. You have to listen. So when Rabbi Ezekiel had an opinion about like how properly to tile the interior of an oven when you're cooking on the Sabbath, and every other rabbi in the discussion had a different opinion, and by consensus they were obliged only to follow the decision of the majority. It didn't matter if Ezekiel was acknowledged as the smartest of them. Consensus ruled the day. So they argued back and forth, and they argued back and forth, and eventually Ezekiel said, "If I'm wrong, may the walls of this room fall in on us." And they started to fall in. The other rabbis turned to the walls and said, "You stay out of this. You are constructions. You have no jurisdiction over how humans behave." And they stopped falling, but in deference to the wisdom of Rabbi Eliezer, they stayed crooked, stayed tilted. The rabbi said, "If I am right, may that tree get up and walk away." And the tree, he pointed out a window, and the tree got up and walked away on its roots. And the rabbis pointed at the tree and say, "You stay out of this. You're a piece of nature. You have no bearing on human laws, only on the laws of nature themselves." And the tree just went back down. Rabbi Eliezer said, "If I am wrong, may that river out there flow backwards." And it started to flow. And the rabbis pointed at the river and said, "You stay out of this. You are a feature of nature. Follow laws that are not the laws of the Torah." And the river reversed and started flowing. So finally, Rabbi Ezekiel pointed up to heaven and said, "If I am correct, let God himself tell us." And a voice came down from heaven saying, "Rabbi Ezekiel is correct." And the other rabbis pointed at heaven and said, "You stay out of this. You already gave us the law. You don't have any jurisdiction over this anymore. The age of the prophets is over, and you can't do that until you send the Messiah." And they heard laughter from heaven, and the voice saying, "My children have defeated me. My children have defeated." And they put the consensus in the Talmud.
See, I always heard it as them asking an angel what had happened when they heard the laughter, and it was God rolling on the floor laughing.
Yeah, there are a lot of different versions of the story, but yeah, I've heard different I've heard a version of it that had the prophet Elijah asking God about this, but there's a bunch of different. We can probably argue about that too, and will for centuries, because we do that a lot. Like there are a lot of stereotypes that just aren't true, but there are stereotypes that have.
I'm well aware, but I believe I first heard that from an Israeli.
I was about to say, a lot have some real basis in reality, and arguing with power that's a big part of why people don't like this, because we are, in many versions of Judaism, religiously obligated to argue with anything that doesn't make sense, which means power does not exactly like us when we do that, and would rather we not, and is often willing to take action to make sure that is the case. And how else better to do that than to sell people on something that, if they drive out or kill the Jews, that they can get. And you can see when anti-Semitism rears up, there's almost always somebody wealthy, powerful, and established who's able to look at, in an era or area which is like chaotic or poor, or there's disruptions, and they can point at the Jews and say, these people don't deserve their things, you get to take them, and then come up with a way to justify that, and come up with a way to stir people up based on that. And that's the core of how a lot of discrimination works. But since, for various reasons having to do with both learning and having kicked out and moving around various places, we do tend to have more money. We do tend to we do tend to bring in. We do tend to hold more skilled jobs, and that makes us good targets.
Reason I heard for Jews traditional, or at least medieval era wealth, was Christians weren't allowed to be moneylenders because of some interpretation of the Bible under Catholicism.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the usury clause, and we were prohibited from doing most forms of labor, as for various reasons. And we were like, the funny thing about that is that by the Crusades, like 1100s or so, people had figured out ways around it in the Christian world. Like, you had the Knights Templar came in large part power because they established the first modern bank. They had a massive banking system. This is but we were associated, since we couldn't work in the fields, or outside of a few areas where, like Eastern Europe, where the vast majority of the modern Jewish populations is descended from populations of Jews that were invited into areas around Poland and Russia to settle, that were really just marginal, and they became what's known as the Ashkenazi and moved out west.
What's the other?
There's actually there were actually like over a dozen, but the other famous one are the Spartans. And if you've heard of the
Sephardi, they're the Spanish Jews.
The survivors of the Inquisition. And there are also the Mizrahi, who are from North Africa. There are the Romaniotes, who are from Greece. You've got Bukharan Jews from Central Asia. You have the Beta Israel from Ethiopia. You have like 3 different kinds of Indian Jews out there. You had the Kaifeng Jews who lived in like central and western China until the 1900s, when they died out. You have a whole bunch of different Jewish peoples and organizations that have long gone. Like the Himyarites were a Jewish dynasty that controlled Yemen in like the 800s. There's all kinds of people. And even have you ever heard of the Abu Yudai?
No.
Yeah, it's kind of obscure, but it's great. So this.
Okay, we're almost out of time.
Okay, oops. Yeah,
sorry.
Next time.
No, like this is very interesting.
Yeah. Now that we've reached Egypt, we have more to lore to come. And we can.
And Jewish lore is appropriate for Egypt. We do meet a lot of jinns, and I think we meet some sort of prophet.
We meet someone important. see them soon.